Welcome back to the deep dive discussion of Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Today we discuss Chapter 9.
Ah, yes, Chapter 9. After all that intensity on the reservation.
Exactly. Fresh off those experiences, this chapter dives straight into the fallout. How our key characters are processing, or maybe not processing, what they just saw.
That's a good point. That encounter with Linda and John, it wasn't just a shock,
Yeah.
it was a real catalyst. It forced Lenina and Bernard to face something completely outside their nice, neat, conditioned reality.
And their reactions couldn't be more different.
Not at all. Polar opposites, almost.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, our mission is really to unpack those radically divergent paths Lenina and Bernard take right after leaving that chaotic scene on the reservation.
And then we need to get into John's side of things, too.
Right. We need to really immerse ourselves in John's solitary, intensely emotional exploration back at the rest house. It's a chapter that's all about these immediate responses, these internal worlds just crashing against each other.
It really lays bare their fundamental characters, doesn't it? How one just seeks oblivion and others sees, well, opportunity.
And the third is grappling with this completely alien internal landscape full of Shakespeare and conflicting emotions.
Precisely.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Lenina, after witnessing, the state Linda was in and the raw intensity of John, how does she cope?
Well, her method is a classic world state, isn't it? The source material is quite clear. She feels she's earned a complete and absolute holiday after all the queerness and horror.
A holiday from reality.
Pretty much. Her solution. Soma.
And not just a casual dose, right? We're talking serious amounts here.
Oh, yeah. 6 half-gram tablets. That's a massive dose, designed for total disconnection, total escape. The text actually describes it as sending her on an 18-hour escape into a lunar eternity.
Wow, lunar eternity. Think about that phrase. It's a complete removal from time, from reality. Just a chemically induced nothingness.
It's the world state's ultimate tool, isn't it? For suppressing any inconvenient feelings, any difficult thoughts, just smooth it all over.
A total chemical vacation from anything uncomfortable. She doesn't process the trauma. She just, makes it disappear behind a wall of drugs.
Exactly. It's the absolute epitome of their conditioning.
Yeah.
Encounter distress, eliminate consciousness, no reflection, no growth, just escape.
Bernard, though, his reaction is the complete opposite. He's not reaching for that Soma bottle.
Not at all. The text gives us this great image of him pensive and wide-eyed in the dark,
Yeah.
right? Struggling with insomnia.
Can't switch off like Lennon.
No. Unlike her, Bernard is forced to lie awake and, well, think about it. This discomfort, this inability to just find easy sleep, that already sets him apart, even if his thoughts are pretty self-serving.
And those sleepless hours aren't wasted, are they? At least not from his point of view. The source mentions his insomnia had not been fruitless. He had a plan.
And what kind of plan forms in that state?
It sounds opportunistic.
Totally opportunistic. This isn't him processing the human tragedy he witnessed. Not really. This is him recognizing a unique, an asset. Linda and John represent something extraordinary, something outside the system.
And he immediately sees how he can use that.
How he can leverage that, yeah. For his own status, his own advancement within the world state.
Ah, okay. So the discomfort isn't really about empathy. It's more about strategic thinking. This discovery is his potential career move.
Precisely. It's a glimpse into that core insecurity and ambition that just drives him. He's not seeking understanding, he's seeking advantage. Pure Bernard.
And that urgency, that ambition, it drives his actions the very next morning. He doesn't hang around.
No, the source is really specific here, almost clinical, kind of like Bernard's approach, actually. Punctually at 10 o'clock, the helicopter arrives. Bernard's already there, waiting. He's got his timeline all worked out.
He makes sure Lenina's out cold first, safely on her Soma holiday, as he calls it.
Right, giving him that crucial 7-hour window he thinks he needs.
Enough time, he reckons, to get to Santa Fe and handle his business.
And the business he handles is, pretty extraordinary for the Bernard we've seen so far, isn't it?
Yeah.
He seems to find some backbone here.
He goes straight to the post office in Santa Fe and makes a call. And it escalates incredibly fast up the world state ladder.
It's fascinating to watch this unfold in the text, the timing of it all. At 10:37, he's talking to the 4th secretary. Just 7 minutes later, 10:44, he's already up to the 1st secretary.
That's quick.
And then, incredibly, just 3.5 minutes after that, so 10:47 and a half, he's speaking directly to Mustapha Mond himself.
Wow.
That rapid progression, it highlights both the potential magnitude of his discovery, how unusual it is, and Bernard's sort of uncharacteristic assertiveness when he knows he holds a winning hand.
It shows he really understands the system's priorities, doesn't it? Anything genuinely outside the norm, anything scientifically interesting in their cold, controlled world that gets fast-tracked.
Exactly. And Bernard knows just how to frame it. He's described his stammering, slightly, putting on a bit of deference maybe.
But he pitches it perfectly.
Yeah, asking if Mond would find the matter of sufficient scientific interest. He speaks their language, the language of science and control, not humanity.
And Mond's response? Instant. No hesitation at all.
None whatsoever. Mond immediately confirms it is of sufficient scientific interest, and the order is given just as quickly. Bring these 2 individuals back to London with you.
Notice that language again. 2 individuals, not people, just specimens.
Dehumanizing, yeah. Specimens for study. And Bernard doesn't even have to ask about permissions or anything. Mond is already sending the necessary orders straight to the warden and the reservation.
It's such a stark illustration of Mond's power, his efficiency, when dealing with something he thinks is important for, the stability or understanding of the world state. Linda and John are instantly just classified, collected, dispatched.
Problem solved, from Mond's perspective. Or maybe opportunity gained.
So Bernard gets off the phone, successful, and this is where we see that shift in his demeanor really, really solidify.
Oh, completely. He walks straight over to the warden's office, times it perfectly, 10:54, shaking hands with the warden. The warden already knows, right? He mentions the special orders from his Fordship.
But Bernard doesn't just play along humbly. He actually interrupts the warden.
He does, adopting this almost arrogant, bored, patronizing tone. That's how the text puts it. He boasts about having just spoken to Mond moments ago.
Name-dropping the world controller.
Totally. And insists everything be done as soon as possible, repeating the phrase just to rub it in. He's completely shedding his usual insecurity in this moment of, borrowed authority.
He's clearly loving it. The text says he was thoroughly enjoying himself. This is the power he's always craved, isn't it?
Absolutely. But it's not earned through merit or character. It's just through association with someone truly powerful.
Yeah.
It's like he's high on Mond's authority.
It's a small taste of the control he feels he's always been denied. He gets the necessary papers sorted in minutes by 11:03. Mission accomplished.
Done and dusted.
So does he rush back now? Back to Lenina and John?
Not a chance. Look at what he does next. It's quite telling. A leisurely walk back to the hotel.
Taking his time.
A bath, a vibrovac massage, an electrolytic shave, catches up on the news, watches the televisor, has a leisured luncheon.
Soaking it all in.
He's fully re-immersing himself in all the comforts and routines of the world state, basically celebrating his successful manipulation before he has to go back and deal with the savages. The contrast with the urgency he put on for the warden couldn't be sharper.
Right. Well, Bernard's off enjoying his victory lap back in Santa Fe. The other key player, John, is having his own intense drama back at the rest house. He actually gets back before Bernard does.
Yes, and his initial reaction is just pure agonizing fear and despair. He finds the door locked, and in his mind, conditioned by a lifetime of abandonment and uncertainty on the reservation.
The only conclusion is they're gone.
Which the source describes as the most terrible thing that had ever happened to him. He just sits down on the steps and cries.
It's such a raw, utterly human display of emotion, grief, fear of abandonment, all that hope dashed. Something completely unthinkable for a conditioned world state citizen, right?
Absolutely unthinkable. His capacity for such deep feeling is precisely what sets him apart. It's his humanity shining through, even in despair.
But then, after sitting there crying for half an hour, a glimmer of hope appears.
He looks through the window, and what does he see? Lenina's green suitcase. With her initials, LC.
That simple object.
That simple object just sparks intense hope. Joy flared up like fire within him, the text says.
And that leads him to do something impulsive.
Completely impulsive. He immediately picks up a stone and just smashes the window. He has to break through a barrier, literally break through to get back to the source of his hope. It's a violent act, really, but born of desperation and longing.
So he gets inside, and his attention immediately goes to Lenina's suitcase. This whole segment is incredibly revealing about John's internal state, isn't it? And how he perceives Lenina.
It really is. He opens the suitcase, and the first thing that hits him is the smell her perfume. And this isn't just, a nice smell. The text describes him filling his lungs with her essential being. His heart is beating wildly.
Wow.
For John, who lacks all the casual physical intimacy norms of the world state, this sensory experience, the smell, It's a profound connection, almost spiritual for him.
He touches her things, lifts them, examines them. There's a real sense of wonder, even delight.
Yes, that moment with the zippers on her shorts is so telling. Zip and then zip, zip and then zip. He was enchanted. This is a simple piece of world state tech, totally mundane to them.
But to John, it's part of the mystery of her, isn't it? A small puzzle he can solve, a piece of her world he can actually touch and understand.
Exactly. And his reactions to other items, they range from admiration to, well, deep modesty.
Right, admiring the green slippers.
But then blushing deeply at the Zippocaminix and quickly putting them away. That's the reservation's ingrained modesty just colliding head-on with the casualness of the world state.
But then he does more intimate things, too.
Like kissing a perfumed handkerchief,
Yeah.
winding a scarf around his neck.
Yeah.
He's trying to absorb her essence, to feel close to her through these objects that carry her presence, her scent.
And that spilled powder incident that feels almost sacramental in his hands.
It really does. His hands become flowery. He wipes it on himself, feeling her real presence through the scent and touch. And he whispers her name, Lenina, in this private, almost worshipful moment. These objects are like conduits for his intense longing and his idealization of her.
It's such a powerful mix of sensory connection, deep longing, and this kind of innocent fascination with her belongings, her world.
Exactly. He's building this picture of her, or maybe reinforcing his idealized image of her through these physical fragments of her life.
But then his intense focus gets broken by a noise.
He hears something and immediately feels this pang of guilt, trying to hide his thieveries, as the book calls them. It's that ingrained sense of right and wrong, of not taking what isn't his, even if it's just handling things.
So he cautiously investigates and discovers Lenina asleep in the next room.
Yes, completely out from the Soma. And his observation of her in this vulnerable state, it's really crucial.
He sees her as beautiful, obviously, but also touchingly childish, trustful in the helplessness of her limp hands and melted limbs.
It's such a different perspective than how world state citizens are usually seen or how they see themselves. He sees her vulnerability, a softness that their conditioning usually just masks completely.
And despite knowing she's in this deep, coma-like sleep, the text even calls his caution unnecessary. Tears come to his eyes.
Tears, yeah.
Why do you think? It feels like more than just seeing someone vulnerable.
I think it's likely the collision of everything, isn't it? Seeing her beauty and her helplessness, his own intense, confusing feelings for her, the huge gap between his ideals and her reality, the hope and despair he just went through moments before. It's just an overwhelming emotional surge that, well, the reservation allowed for, but the world state tries to eliminate entirely.
And this leads straight into the incredibly powerful moment of internal conflict, expressed through the only language he really has for it, Shakespeare.
Right. He's kneeling beside her bed, gazing at her. His lips move, and he starts reciting lines from Romeo and Juliet. This isn't just him showing off his memory. It's his actual framework for understanding love, beauty, desire. He's trying to fit Lenina, this world state gamma, into the mold of a tragic, pure heroine.
He praises her beauty with comparisons from the play, lamenting that something as base as flies might kiss her lips while she lies there in pure and vestal modesty. He's just imposing his ideal of purity onto her sleeping form.
It's this beautiful, but also really tragic attempt to reconcile the physical reality of Lenina with the idealized romantic love he's only read about.
Yeah.
But then the physical reality and his own desire, it crashes in.
There's that hesitant gesture.
Yeah, he reaches out a trembling hand, stopping just within an inch of her. He sees her not as Juliet in that moment, but as a shy and possibly rather dangerous bird. He can't quite bring himself to touch his idealized image.
And then comes the detestable thought.
Yes, this is the visceral, unmediated intrusion of physical desire, completely untempered by his romantic Shakespearean ideals. The thought is shockingly blunt. Take hold of the zipper at her neck and give one long, strong pull.
It's the world state's casual sexuality, which he's been exposed to but hasn't assimilated at all, manifesting as this raw impulse right up against his carefully constructed framework.
It's the battle raging inside him, isn't it? Between the pure, almost unattainable love he's learned about from books and the immediate physical gratification that the world state offers so freely and that his own body desires.
And his immediate reaction to that thought is pure shame. Physical revulsion, even.
Totally. He shook his head with the gesture of a dog, calling the thought detestable. He recoils from the idea of simply taking what he desires, especially when it's so easily available because she's unconscious. He reaffirms his commitment right then and there to pure and vestal modesty. This is the core conflict that's going to define so much of his experience going forward.
This intense, deeply personal, internal struggle, it's then just shattered by an external sound.
A humming noise.
Mm.
Growing louder, not a fly this time, but the sound of the returning helicopter. Bernard's back.
John's panic is immediate. He doesn't even think to use the door he could now unlock. He just scrambles back the way he came in.
Vaulting back through that broken window, physically exiting the scene of his internal turmoil, just as the representative of the external world state, Bernard, arrives.
And that's exactly where he meets him. Perfect timing, in a way.
As Bernard climbs out of the helicopter, John is scrambling out the window, bringing these two starkly contrasting figures face to face again right at the close of the chapter.
So bringing it all together then, what Chapter 9 really highlights is just these vastly different ways these characters react under pressure and when they're presented with opportunity or, intense emotion.
Yeah, Bernard's reaction is entirely self-serving, isn't it? Calculated. He uses the situation to gain status within the very system he simultaneously resents. He sees people, Linda and John, as means to an end.
Which aligns perfectly with Mond's view of them, too, just scientific interest.
Exactly. Specimens. While Lenina's reaction is pure avoidance, chemically engineered oblivion. She doesn't engage with the difficult reality at all, just relies completely on her conditioning and, well, lots of Soma.
And John's reaction is perhaps the most human, and therefore the most painful to watch, maybe.
I think so. His reaction is this raw display of fear, despair, hope, fascination, and then that violent internal struggle between his deeply ingrained ideals of love and purity versus the raw physical desire he's only just beginning to understand, especially in the context of the world state's completely different sexual norms.
It's this clash between the values of the reservation, filtered through Shakespearean ideals, and the reality of the world state that creates this immense internal pressure cooker for John.
Absolutely. And this chapter sets the stage perfectly for what's coming. Bernard has successfully manipulated the system. He's bringing John and Linda to London.
Meanwhile, John has had this intense, solitary encounter with Lenina that reveals the absolute depth of his longing and his internal conflict.
The stage is well and truly set. What's going to happen when these two characters, John and Linda, so different in their values and reactions, are brought from the isolation of the reservation right into the overwhelming heart of the world state?
And what will this mean for Lenina once her 18-hour Soma holiday finally wears off?
The collision is now just inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Worlds are about to collide.
And as John grapples with these clashing desires, the ideal versus the physical, it really makes you wonder, in a world that's been engineered for ease and conformity, is true freedom, true feeling, even possible? Or desirable? Something to think about as we see what happens next. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to see you when we discuss the next chapter.